This is the 6 most common mistakes of driving. Like I say, this is from Ross Bentley. If you don't know who he is, look him up. Really, really smart guy. He does a lot of like driving things online, workshops and blogs and things like that. Yeah, I highly recommend finding him. But I mean, his 6 things are exactly what I talked about with our speed therapy academy or speed academy guys on when we got to the driving part. Okay, first one, the low eyes. These are common mistakes. When people start driving on track, these are the mistakes everybody makes. Absolutely everybody. So when I talk to people that are improving their driving, you know, they get bummed out, they're doing this. Come on, everybody does this. So, you know, one of the things is low eyes. People, when they first driving, you know, they're tense. They're kind of looking down. They're looking more at the dash than out, or looking at the road right in front of them. And what you need to be doing, you need to be looking out, way out, because the car will go wherever you're looking. Okay, and if you're looking down, I mean, you're only seeing what's a little bit in front of you. You're not getting the full picture. You need to train your eyes to get up and look, because once you start looking way ahead, then what's close just is this peripheral, and it just comes to you. You don't even have to look at it. But when you look ahead, you can see where the next corner is. Sometimes, as we talked about in the academy, you need to use one corner to set up another corner, or sometimes there's 3 in a row, and how you have to use the first corner to set the second corner up, and the second corner, third corner up. But you need to be looking down the track. Now here's another one. Absolutely everybody I've ever taught, I've ever coached, does this, early apex. And what is the early apex? Early apex is when you turn into a corner too soon. Now on a corner, I don't know if I can draw this or not. No, I'm a terrible artist. My son is, Adam is the artist. Okay, that's not exactly what I wanted, but it's close enough. So the theoretical apex is if it's an arc. The theoretical apex is, let's say, like right here. That should actually go down a little bit. Right there, so that you get this nice, smooth arc. Okay, when you early apex, it means you're, we use red, because that's the bad thing. Can you even see that?
Yeah, you can see it.
Okay. When you early apex, what you're doing is you're turning in down here, and when you do that, your car goes off the track. If you turn into a corner and you run out of track on the end, that was an early apex. Then you need to keep moving your apexes lower and lower and lower. And ignore, if you're in a Mustang, ignore the theoretical apex. And what you're looking for, I got green. What you're looking for is a late apex. Let's say this is your late apex right here. Why a late apex? I engineer my suspension, the AGS 4.0 for S197s, for everything's about a corner. The anti-dive in the front, the anti-squat in the back means you can brake later than anybody else, and that's time, the pickup time. The geometry in the front is real crisp turn in, so when you turn the wheel, it turns. And then between what we do with the roll centers, the rear geometry, you can get back to the gas sooner and get off the corner, because everything is always about corner exit speed. Not corner entry speed, corner exit speed. So by doing a late apex, what happens is you come in really late, and by the time you get the apex, you're looking straight down the track. It means you're on the gas back here, and you're going straight down the track. If you do an early apex, the only way to survive is to take your foot off the gas and slow down. If you do a normal apex, then you're getting to the gas way down here. If you do a late apex in a Mustang, especially my suspension, you're on the gas sooner. So early apex, everybody does. So I mean, it's if you, when you turn, if you're at the edge of the road on the corner exit, that was an early apex. So you can actually monitor yourself. Here's another one: not using the brake hard enough through threshold braking. People, when they first start, they're pretty tentative on the brakes. I mean, there are two types of braking style. I refer to it as threshold braking. Now, what Ross is talking about is threshold braking for racing. That's taking it up to the absolute very last second. If you're in Formula One, it's the last millisecond, and you just stand on the brakes and you get that nose buried and you turn through the corner. If you do that in track day driving, you're going to go through a set of brake pads a weekend and a set of rotors every other week. I mean, it's not worth it. I mean, Roger Penske's never up in the tower scouting for drivers. So I mean, it's just the way I brake. And I talk about this in the academy. It's kind of like if it was a braking curve, I start slowly and then just keep more and more pressure. At the very end, to get a really hard stab, tire set and turn. You know, I make brake pads and rotors last a long time, and I'm really quick. So that's the thing is, like, when you first start braking, you don't brake enough, and then some people just go crazy and just threshold brake and burn up their brakes. But it means you've got to get your braking worked out, and that's just one of the things you're just going to have to figure out. Depends on your car, the suspension geometry, and the brakes you have in there, brake pads and tires. All that works into braking. And as I tell people that, you know, what is a brake? What are brakes? Brakes are a heat generator. Brakes take the kinetic energy of a Mustang roaring down the track at 120 miles an hour, which is, you know, a body in motion sends it stay in motion until acted upon by outside source. And stopping trees and guardrails and concrete walls are not the preferred method of stopping a Mustang. So what happens when you hit the brakes take that kinetic energy and turn it into heat energy, which is why we'll do a whole brake thing sometime. And that's why brakes get hot. You've got to have the right brake pads, brake pad compound to cover the heat range that your brakes are at. You need, if you're serious, you have to have brake cooling ducts because you burn up brakes. But that's a whole nother subject. Okay, here's his next one: getting on the gas too soon or too hard. Everybody in a Mustang knows when you go around a corner, what happens if you get to the gas too soon. What is it? Oversteer. When the back of the car hits the wall first. That's because, you know, in a stock Mustang, there's no real geometry back there, and the back of the car is light. And if you get to the gas too soon, what you're doing is you haven't waited for the axle to settle. Okay, when you go around a corner in a Mustang, because it's live axle, you sort of have to wait for the axle to settle. You wait until you can, you know, ease the gas in and then put your foot down. And you put that down too soon, the back of the car goes away. On IRS cars, it's not quite as critical, but you still have that little bit of a wait before you can get back to the gas. But getting too much gas too soon, you know, you're going to overload the outside tire. It's going to break loose. The car is going to either get a little loose and do a tank slapper, or you're going to back into the wall. So getting on the gas too soon, too hard. Although, like I say, with the S197 suspension we have, and also the suspension of the SN95 IRS, and I will also say with the 550 cars, they've got a great suspension. But what we do with our shock and spring package, you can get to the gas sooner than a live axle car. So that's kind of like that's the getting gas too soon. Now here's another big one: not using all the track. When we're doing our driving critique in the academy, Joe Johnson had a video of Eagle Canyon, I think it is, his most favorite track. And you know, what he was doing. I mean, if he were a real estate agent, he'd be a really bad real estate agent because he was giving up real estate. So we talked about how you can use more of the road. When you use more of the road, I mean, the road's all there. It's all yours. You can go side to edge, really not go off, but you go edge to edge. And if before you turn into a corner, you want to make sure you're absolute outside edge. You want to use all that road. Now, coming back through the turn, you want to use all the road, but not really all the road. You don't want to be drifting out the edge because that means you turn in too soon. But, you know, all the tracks all yours. Use all the road. Here's another one: induced understeer by turning the wheel too soon or too sharp. I've seen people that, you know, they just can't get really understeer, and when you really get down to it, what they're doing is turning in too soon. As soon as you turn in too soon, what happens is that's kind of like a shock load on the tires. They get overwhelmed, and there's not enough time for the car to take a set for them to grip, so they just push away. Steering through a corner should be smooth. Smooth is good. Back in my old shop, we used to have signs everywhere that said smooth is good. Basically, it should be smooth in, smooth out. None of this, because then you're going to be doing that. None of this in the middle. You want to be smooth in, smooth out. You wind in and you wind out. A lot of people can get understeer just by turning in too soon. And I've had some people that just have not been able to break that habit. So anyway, there's Ross Bentley 6 with a little narration from myself on driving tips.